It was one of the most notorious cold cases in the region, the murder of 24-year-old Lisa Ziegert in 1992. 2 years ago, the Hampden County District Attorney's Office announced the arrest of Gary Schara. Last week, another major development. Schara pleaded guilty in court to first-degree murder. Carolee McGrath sat down with District Attorney Anthony Gulluni the day after his plea to find out more.
So yesterday was the plea hearing for Gary Schara, who prior to that had been accused of murdering Lisa Ziegert in April of 1992. Her body was discovered on Easter Sunday, April 19th, 1992. So Mr. Schara had been arrested in September of 2017, and the case was going through the usual steps in court. And we had some discussions with defense counsel and essentially issued a bit of a deadline as to where this case was going to go. And Mr. Schara, sometime in August, at least as far as we were concerned, decided to plead to first-degree murder, which comes by statutory mandate with life without parole as its sentence, which is the harshest penalty under our state laws here in Massachusetts. So that plea hearing took place yesterday in court, and that led to my reading a statement of facts over the course of about 20 minutes that I prepared around what happened to Lisa back in April, starting on April 15th, 1992, detailing the horrific circumstances of her death. And then that was offered to the court, and victim impact statements were read by members of Lisa's family, which of course were very touching and heart-wrenching in some ways. And Mr. Schara was formally sentenced by the court to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
This is extremely rare, though, for a defendant to do this, yes?
It is indeed, yes. It is because in a first-degree murder plea, the defendant has to take the only sentence available under our law, which is life without parole, which is, again, the harshest sentence that is available in Massachusetts. So, in effect, from a legal standpoint and a punishment standpoint, the defendant gains nothing by taking that plea. It would be the same result if he were convicted by a jury. So, in other words, why not try the case, even if it's a 5% chance that there's some sort of not guilty or mistake or whatever it might be. So it is very rare. There's been a couple instances in Hampden County historically, a couple instances more recently in Middlesex County out near Boston, but it is very, very rare for these circumstances to take place.
In your view, why do you think he did it?
I don't know, and I don't care to get into Gary Schara's head. I don't know why he decided to take responsibility in this way. My focus was really on the family throughout and justice for Lisa, and really making sure that we were prepared to try the case and convict him should he choose to go to trial.
And this certainly saves the family, though, from enduring a lengthy trial as well.
It does. The trial would have been upwards of 3 weeks. It would have examined in very close detail all the horrible things that happened to Lisa, all the pictures and everything that we know, and it would have been a difficult process. And add to that, which we discussed at length with the family, is the post-conviction issue. Should Mr. Schara have been convicted, there's an automatic appeal in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that would take 3 or 4 or 5 years to really complete, and there's a lot of post-conviction issues that can come back. So with a plea, many of those issues are non-existent. So it really makes this a much more definitive ending, which of course gives great comfort to the family.
So he flew under the radar for 25 years, but there was new technology and developments in DNA. Bring us up to date on how this case was finally cracked.
So I put together a team shortly upon coming into office that involved an Agawam police officer who had a long history with the case and a relatively new state trooper who I brought into my office in 2017, and I identified him as the right person to work the case and be a part of this team, and an assistant district attorney with lots of experience. And we worked this case very closely and spent a lot of time on it. And in 2017, we decided to present some of the evidence to an outside lab that's out of Virginia called Parabon Nano Labs. And at the time, and they still are on the cutting edge of what it's called phenotyping. And it's basically kind of reverse engineering DNA, taking someone's DNA sample, at the time we didn't know whose it was, taking it and then giving us information about that individual just from that DNA sample, like eye color, hair color, ethnic ancestry, And it actually produced a composite profile, a face of this individual, which was an approximation, but it based it on this DNA profile, and as it turned out, had a great degree of accuracy. So we used that to essentially tailor our investigation to focus on certain people, exclude other people who didn't fit into this profile.
And Schara was on a list at one point, yes?
So Mr. Schara was on a list going back to 1993, the first parts of the investigation, and he had various contact with law enforcement over the years in 1993, 2002, and 2008. But what me and my office did is we culled down these lists in 2017 after the phenotyping done by Parabon, and essentially came up with 11 names of individuals who were persons of interest for one reason or another, and who had refused to voluntarily provide their DNA to law enforcement. And then with those names, we went to a grand jury. We started a grand jury investigation. I went before the grand jury and presented them with evidence on each of these people and asked them to petition the Superior Court to compel those individuals to give us their DNA. And through that process, Gary Schara, again, was one of those people. He was contacted by law enforcement for these purposes, actually just to give notice of a hearing that would have furthered this pursuit. And that was when he penned essentially confessions that were given to law enforcement by his girlfriend at the time. And then we knew who our person was, and we pursued it, and ended up in an arrest just a couple days after that.
Because he was never in the system before that, so there was no way that he would have been tracked down. A lot of times people will hear of this case and say, he had to have been involved in something else. And is that a question that you get often?
It's a question I've gotten, and there is no evidence, there is no specific or credible reason to believe he did this either before or after what he did to Lisa. So we've explored that. His DNA profile is now in the various CODIS systems, and it's been run weekly against millions of profiles and unsolved cases. And again, that and everything else that we've done to ensure he's not responsible for any other crimes, again, leads us to believe that he did not do this again, at least as far as we know.
Let's talk a little bit about the Ziegert family. They've suffered for so long, and yet they just show such strength and grace through all of this. And I know that Mrs. Ziegert in particular, has really been forthcoming and spoken out, about her pain and certainly how happy she is that this case has come to this point. What can you say about the family?
It's an honor of a lifetime, not only of my career, but to be a part of the closure of the criminal justice piece of this case. And like I said yesterday, Lisa is never coming back to join her loving family, and that's a tragedy that cannot be corrected by anyone or anything. But the way in which the Ziegert family has dealt with this, and I, like many people in this area, were familiar with the family and Lisa and the case. But upon becoming district attorney in 2015, I started a relationship with Mr. and Mrs. Ziegert and the entire family. And through the last 5 years almost, we've really developed a close relationship. And they are amazingly strong and resilient people who love their family and love Lisa. And they've done everything they can, but frankly have inspired me, have inspired other law enforcement who have worked the case to work as hard as we possibly could have and get to the point that we found ourselves yesterday, where we were holding someone responsible and providing justice for Lisa.
This case certainly gives hope to other families who are looking for justice for their loved ones. In particular, you think of Molly Bish and Holly Peranian, which I know is in your jurisdiction. What could you say about the other cold cases that people are waiting for answers on?
Sadly, there are hundreds of cold or unsolved cases, as we call them. Some are less high profile than something like Holly Peranian or Molly Bish, which are both awful, awful tragedies. So we work on those cases diligently, and we don't forget about those victims and those families who have suffered so much. I have an unsolved case unit that was really responsible for solving the Lisa Ziegert murder, and we will continue to work these cases as diligently as possible. But as Mr. and Mrs. Ziegert so eloquently said at the time at which we announced the arrest of Schara, this should, and we hope it provides hope to those other families who are searching for justice, that even after 25 years, a case that mystified an entire region, in the town of Agawam in particular. We, with technology and hard work and belief, can solve these cases and deliver justice to families that so desperately search for it and richly deserve it.